Hello and welcome to this presentation about the soul. Um, we're going to start off talking about the complete soul, which is, of course, the masculine and feminine, all contained within one soul. In this state, before our first incarnation, the soul is completely unconscious of itself. It has no experience of itself. And it splits off to incarnate into a primarily masculine half of the soul and feminine half of the soul. This is not to say that there can't be feminine splitting off, which would indicate a soul whose other half is also feminine, and the same with the masculine. So when the soul is ready to incarnate, it splits and it begins the process of individualization as one half of the soul. Comes to earth, and a physical body is formed, as well as a spirit body. So that is what is being outlined in this first slide. Later, when the soul has passed from the physical world, gone back through the spirit world, and grown to a certain state, which we're not going to get into here, it will reunite, come back into union with the other half of its soul in a soul union state. This is different than the initial meeting and reunion with your twin flame or soulmate, as it is termed in divine truth. So we're talking about the other half of your soul. The soul union state happens in a much higher dimension, and we're not going to get into that process talking about the soul here. Okay, in this next slide, we're looking at half of the soul. The same would hold truth for either half. So we're picking the masculine in our examples. So we have a half of the soul, and what I'd like to point out is the physical body and the spirit body are virtually the same in that the physical body has a brain which is responsible for all the physiological functions of the physical body only. And of course, we have all of the organs and sensory apparatus, so we can hear and see and smell, etc. And we have the heart, of course, in the physical body. And the same holds true for the spirit body. So and this could also be thought of as the etheric body. And so we have virtually the same spirit or etheric body, except that this brain would operate the spirit body when we pass into the spirit world. And it also does have an effect, as many of us know, on the physical body. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So the spirit body has a silver cord between it and the physical body that animates and influences the physical body. And the half of the soul has a silver cord which goes to the spirit body, and the soul influences the spirit body this way. So we also have organs and a heart and a mind of the soul. Okay, so that is this second slide. In the next slide, we're looking at the half of the soul and the interactions between the spirit body and the physical body. So the physical body could experience a loss of part of the brain and then later regain function. And that means that the spirit body has stepped in to provide that function. So there are many stories of people having something happen where they lose the organ or functionality in their physical body and later regain that function. And I think that's fascinated doctors and people that don't have sight of the spirit body. But of course, those people that may be involved in healing have known this for many, many years. In much of the same way, the soul interacts with the spirit body and is almost identical as to the way the spirit body affects the physical body. So we now have a silver cord as well coming from the soul to the spirit body. And what many people may not know is, in addition to the physical body and the spirit body having a mind and heart and organs and sensory data, so does the soul. So the soul has a mind and a heart, and this is something to definitely keep in mind as we take a look at the next slide. And how will the soul be developed? The next important factor in soul development is, in order for the soul to actually grow, we must grow in love. And the mind of the spirit body is much like the mind of the physical body in that it accepts inputs and stores memories. But outside of that, it's the soul that we really must develop. And unfortunately, if it's not being developed, it's being suppressed, then it is the mind of the spirit body that people end up using to try and determine truth and what they want to do with their life and what their true nature and personality is like. And this is very illogical because, again, it just has stored memories. All of this information is contained within the soul. And eventually, when we're at one with God, the soul will have its own mind, and the brain of the spirit body is really just a tool that the soul will use to express itself. Interesting to note, is it possible while we're in human form to have our soul mind completely dominate the spirit mind? And in this way, the spirit mind is absorbed by the soul mind, and it just becomes completely passive. Let's talk about attributes of the soul. So most people think of humility as a quality, but humility is more than a quality. It actually becomes developed in an organ of the soul, and it dominates the mind of the soul and how it functions. So whether or not you actually believe this to be true, it is how the soul functions. And anything that your soul lacks humility about, in fact, cannot be accepted by the soul's mind. So humility is a very, very important attribute to develop, especially when you are trying to correct things that were learned that are out of harmony with love. So, of course, the soul, the way it's going to develop is to learn more about love. And in our childhood environment, we don't learn completely about love, right? We are learning some wrong things, and we call this errors in love. So there is a concept called preclusion, and that concept is your soul only has the capacity to store one thing at a time. So if you erroneously believe something about love, you will filter out anything else, and you will not be able to take in, no matter how hard you try, you will not be able to take in the correct information. So humility allows you to be connected to and in truth with your feelings. And once you can release your feelings that occurred about these errors in love, you will be able to start absorbing truth. So I am summing up a process that will be discussed in other videos about processing emotions and addictions and how we would develop in love. But just know that this aspect of humility is really one of the more critical organs of the soul that affects everything. Let's talk about love. Love is understood by the heart of the soul, and our mind is not able to completely understand it at all. So we are developing the heart in our soul. Our soul's mind is similar to the brain in that it's only able to express logical thought. And so developing the heart of our soul increases our ability to feel love. Remember, the mind doesn't feel anything, and it is all contained within the heart of the soul. In closing, I want to mention that the importance of understanding our soul is that the soul is dominant, whether we are aware of it or not. And so we will reach many dead ends if we don't come to understand this. Now, commonly, the soul, because it has been suppressed, is referred to as the subconscious mind or even the unconscious mind. But the reason it's referred that way is only due to the suppression. So the physical body, the spirit body, and the soul that have been discussed in these slides are everything that we want to know about, understand how they operate, and work with. So we don't need to get into the subconscious and the unconscious when we understand how developing humility and love will start to grow and expand the soul. God designed the soul to have a mind, but the mind is not the soul. So remember that the mind is subordinate to the soul. So with that, I would like to thank the works of A.J. Miller, who was interviewed about how the human soul functions. And this material was derived from his interview and book that is available for free download on their website. And also, you can see the Divine Truth videos on YouTube. This interview was several hours, and it is just fascinating, as I have found all of their material very fascinating and helpful on understanding my soul and reestablishing a stronger connection with God.